Interior design is something that has always fascinated me. I sit, sleep, and live indoors, constantly surrounded by different forms of interior design. Whether the design choices are made to make a good impression at first glance, or simply to be functional, they almost always serve a purpose. When I'm in a room, purpose is the first thing I think of. I went to Stockholm to find examples of interior design, and here's what I found. Stockholm, a great place to find innovative interior design, with busy streets and plenty of interesting architecture. There's an abundance of cozy cafes and open streets. It's very easy to come across design galleries in a place that's constantly moving. Decor is crucial for an interior, and is a lot of the time what makes it unique and can really set the mood for the room. Furniture can separate or bring a room together. It is what makes an empty, dull space habitable, comfortable, and inviting. Lighting really sets the mood for a room. Whether it's ambient, task, or accent lighting, it plays a huge role in displaying a certain type or a certain amount of energy. Transportation is an extensive part of our everyday lives. That's why interior design in places like subways and airports are so important, especially when they give off an inviting feeling for regular travelers and tourists.
Typically, I get it out of many sources. I mean, there's sources of nature or past projects, or in many instances, I go in without inspiration. It's kind of almost a linear process for me when you're dealing with the program of creating a building. So there may be an underlying narrative as far as sustainability or ease of access to a site, but typically one could say that I won't say figure it out as I go along, but in many instances I draw from different inspirations. So it could be natural, it could be systemic, it could be a social thing, it could be a problem that just needs to be solved. It's simple or complex. So I get them from many sources. Materiality is usually a big one, but it depends on the level of finish. Sometimes a client just wants to move a door and add lighting, and sometimes, if you're talking about restaurants or office spaces, sometimes they want to set a tone that aligns with their brand. Budget is always a deciding factor, but I think I found the most rewarding projects have come with constraints. How do you really, quote unquote, innovate without the ease of having a limitless budget? It's really easy to do marble and mahogany offices, but how do you make that look good with a limited budget? I mean, it's just if you took an Armani suit and made it out of denim versus 100s wool, it would still be an Armani suit. It's all down to the details, how things fit together. Well, I mean, they're kind of one and the same. Functionality is always an added value. I mean, unless you're talking about art, which doesn't have to have a function. I think if you are creating a space for someone to use day in, day out, a children's school, I don't know, an office, a theater, someone's house, I think to add value with regard to added functionality, in other words, making it kind of like a Swiss Army knife, taking an otherwise basic form or basic function and then adding other features, making it a convertible space and making it, taking a theater and going from flat floor to proscenium to amphitheater. Those are just added values with regard to program and design. I start with the really boring parts, accessibility, how much light is there, how much light can be brought in, just typical programmatic guidelines and constraints in many cases. And then from there we look at materials with regard to sourcing of materials, whether they're upsourced materials from other projects that have been demolished or new materials that may or may not be recyclable or have some sort of recyclable program. And then we look at, creating a warmth or a temperature or a mood in terms of lighting. LED makes it really easy to do nowadays. Also, just really baking in a lot of the kind of garden variety expenses, life cycle cost. In other words, what does it cost to light your room versus, how often the lights are on and off. So you're probably thinking something like motion sensor lighting or recyclable carpeting or engineered wood floors or concrete, whatever, It's all about, really it starts with the company or the client, really what their individual tastes are and how I can either echo that language or even highlight and improve an idea where it wasn't before.